Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by Losico. So, today we will be discussing two articles. The first one is from The Hindu. The title of this article is Tax Policy in Trying Times. So, this talks about the discrepancies or the anomalies which exist in the taxing system of India and what changes do we need to bring in to have a good economic growth in the country. And the second article is from the Indian Express, which is titled as Farm Reforms in India, China. So this basically compares the farm reforms that have taken place in China and what are the good points that we can pick as a country from the Chinese farm reforms and can make it beneficial for our own farm system as well. And thirdly, we have the news and flash column. So if in case you're also preparing for judicial services examination, you can have a look at the lot of the courses, which is judiciary test prep course from Losico. The link to this course is there in the description box. And from the landing page, you can also download free study material for the same. So this is the multiple choice question for the day. WHO designated 2020 as the International Year of Doctors, International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, International Year of Disabled Persons, or none of the above. So this is from yesterday's discussion. So you can write it down in the comment section below if you know the right answer. Let's see what is the descriptive question for the day. What lessons can we learn from the Chinese agricultural reforms? Discuss. So once we are done with today's article, you will definitely have an idea about this article. With this, let's discuss the first one for the day, which talks about tax policy during COVID-19. So as we know that during the lockdown, India's GDP contracted consecutively for 2 quarters from April to September 2020. And as we know that for the first quarter, it was really, really worse, which was 23.9%. And this time also it is about 7 to 8%. So, but the contraction is taking place, though now, fortunately, at a slower pace, but still the contraction is taking place. But on the contrary, from January to June of this year, 85 new Indians were added to the list of high net worth individuals. That is, those who have their net worth or their entire business or the entire value of their work is more than $50 million. So this definitely is very ironical that on one side where the national economy is going down and consecutively in 2 quarters, we have been seeing contraction in the GDP and the entire economy. On the very opposite side, 85 new Indians have been added to the list of high net worth individuals. So in a way, we can understand that a going down pace of economy or a shrinking economy has not really had a devastating effect on these people. Rather, they have managed to earn even more in such times of crisis. And how has that happened? What is the role of the tax regime in India in this very regard will be discussed in this article. So the taxing multinational companies, let's understand that what is the system of taxing the MNCs in India. So the steps that are taken are taxes rates have been lowered. So for them, for the multinational companies, so that they provide better employment and they're more incentivized to open more and more MNCs, the tax rates had been cut down. Non-resident e-commerce operators were brought within the scope of levy by Finance Act 2000, which was 2% of GST. So this is a point which we have taken in care of, that the e-commerce operators, like any of these, you can take example of Amazon itself. So as we know that Amazon is not an Indian company, and it is an e-commerce operator where you can do a lot of business just using the internet. So they who were non-resident in India, just like maybe Amazon, they were brought within the scope of levy by the Finance Act 2000. So it was actually that 2% of GST would be levied on them. But the problems that exist are nexus rule versus residence rule to tax MNCs. Now, there is a problem of non-resident MNCs and the resident MNCs. The laws for them are not same because obviously we want to incentivize more and more investment coming from the other countries. So tax avoidance by global web companies. Now, many a times what has happened is that various global web companies that actually, specifically if we talk about India, they function in India. So a lot of incentives are provided to them in the name of tax redemption. So a lot of taxes, either redeemed to them as in given back to them, or it is not levied in that at the same scale as it is levied from the domestic countries. many a times what happens is that this tax is also given, or it is levied at a lesser for a lesser amount from these companies, so that the ultimate benefit goes to the consumers. But many a times it has been seen that it is only that company that keeps the ultimate benefit, and it is not percolated to the consumers, which was the actual purpose of giving them the tax exemption. So that is why many tricks and tactics are played by the global web companies to avoid the taxes. And many companies do not pass, just as we discussed, they do not pass on the tax benefits to the consumers. Like for example, just let's take a very simple example. There is a company that makes some kind of drug that is a very important medicine. So that medicine is something that is consumed very largely in any nation, and even the poorest of the poor people need it. Just let's take an example of paracetamol or crocin or something like that. Though it's just an example, I'm not we cannot really conclude to the fact that they are really given tax exemptions. But yes, some companies which offer such things to the consumers that are necessary for the human survival are definitely given tax exemption. So for example, the actual amount of tax that had to be taken up from this company was rupees 100. But since we want that the consumers should be, now obviously if the company would pay a lot of tax to the government, then it would be levying a greater amount of money or price for their goods and services as well. But we as a government want that the ultimate goods and services to the consumers should be given at a low price and affordable price. For that, we try to incentivize and help the manufacturing company to pay lesser amount of tax. So let's say for instead of rupees 100, now they have to pay only 60 rupees as the tax. So the ultimate purpose was that the end rate of the price of goods or services that are rendered by the company is low, and it is affordable by the people. But many a times it has been seen that these companies do not pass the tax benefits to the consumers, and they tend to enjoy the entire benefit and exemption to themselves. So these are a few steps that are needed in this direction. Find a mechanism to negotiate settlement through mediation and conciliation or arbitration between companies and the CBDT. And so basically, it is the Central Board for Direct Taxes. So this and the companies, if at all there is any dispute, so a timely mechanism should be taken up, wherein instead of lethargy, or instead of just hanging on to the cases and the entire issue, we should take up the process through mediation, conciliation, and even in the case through arbitration as well, so that a speedy trial and speedy decision can be taken up. Then we should definitely rewrite the tax laws, wherein it should be made more equitable and more equally distributed amongst all the stakeholders, and keep pace with the fast changing events. So the finance minister announced a new scheme of faceless assessment and faceless appeals. So basically this, as we know, honorable citizen transparent system, if you remember, we also discussed it through our previous sessions, wherein this entire system of faceless assessment and faceless appeals. So in a way, if there is any dispute going on, so there will be no clear names of the parties, but just the dispute will be unanimously solved. And if there is any complaint or appeal, then it can be faceless too, so that the person who is making an appeal can be kept safe. So this definitely has helped, will be a good step, a welcome step in keeping or maintaining the privacy and secrecy of the people engaged in this entire issue. And it will actually incentivize the people to come forward and discuss the problems related to the tax laws. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about the farm reforms for India and China. So as we know that the ongoing farmers' protests in Delhi and nearby areas are just increasing day by day. And a 2008 paper in Economic and Political Weekly underlined how China started off reforms in agriculture. As we know that if we talk about India to be specific, so at the time of Indian independence in 1947, the state of food security in India was bizarre. So it was like we were almost every now and then we had famines and people were starving. Malnutrition was a huge problem, and the agricultural security was, it seems to be a big thing. And that is why a lot of agrarian reforms, of which all of us know the Green Revolution during 1960s and 70s was the game changer. And at that time, the farmers coming from various states, specifically from Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, they were hugely benefited, and it changed completely the picture of food security in India. So just before 1960s, where India was a huge importer of food grains, because obviously we could not manufacture our own, we could not grow our own food due to various restraints. After 1960s and 70s, India became, and even till date, it is one of the greatest or biggest suppliers or exporters of various kinds of food grains and products. But still, the reforms that have been taken place, now this was one major reform for changing the picture of agriculture in India. But since then, many times we have heard the cases of farmers committing suicide, and maybe the entire crop going waste, improper use of water, irrigation, or pesticides. So a lot of reforms are needed in India as well. And even the protest that is going on is also regarding the very, one of the biggest reforms that could take place in the agriculture cultural area. So let's understand that what were the reforms that took place in Chinese agricultural system. So the agriculture was the starting point of market-oriented reforms. So just like maybe if we can say even India and China both had similarity, at least over here, because obviously food security is the most important thing. Once you have food security, then you can dwell into later things like industrialization, manufacturing, service sector, etc. So just like India, agriculture was the starting point for the market-oriented reforms in China as well. Then to ensure a widespread distribution of gains and to build consensus and political support for further reform. So basically, it was the very reason why agriculture was chosen as a starting point was that we have a better and widespread and even equitable distribution of food grains, and there is political support for further reforms as well. So this basically resulted in greater returns to the farmers, more efficient resource allocation by the government, strengthened domestic production, and made it more competitive. Exactly. So then the rate of growth in agriculture nearly doubled in 1978 to 2002 period. Then poverty came down from 33% in 1978 to just 3% in 2001. But if we talk about India, poverty reduced from 1960 to 1980, but it was majorly not because of any kinds of this of reforms, but strong policy support to agriculture. So if we talk about 1960 to 1980 period, just as we talk about the is the exactly same period wherein the green revolution took place and changed the game for India. So definitely it was not because of any major reform to say, but it was a strong policy of bringing the high yielding varieties and green revolution to the agriculture. But now we need to make timely reforms, which maybe the government was stipulating or it was thinking to bring through the APMC Act and the other kinds of the entire three farm laws that have come into the picture. But definitely it is not a kind of reform that the farmers were maybe looking forward to, and they're not really willing to accept it either. Now, here are a few takeaways from Chinese reform to that we can take for India as well. The government should have built the case for markets and then allowed farmers the time to adjust the market forces. So definitely, these bills, wherein the kind of freedom which the government says would be given to the farmers and so on and so forth, but it was given like all of a sudden. It was very much ideal that the government should have first prepared the markets as such that they make sure that no corruption takes place or no any kind of exploitation or law or lobbying can take place. And then after the farmers became equipped and adjusted to the situation, then they should have brought in such reforms. But this was like a blow onto the entire agricultural marketing system, which is definitely not easy to be accepted by all the farmers in the country. Then bulk of farm produce was traded privately even before these laws came into force. So that is why the government should bring this into consideration, that if at all they're thinking to bring some kind of reform, so it should be of such nature which ultimately has the potential to give some kind of benefit to the farmers. And if at all you're just opening the market for the farmer produce to be sold out, and they are exploited and lobbied in the end, so obviously there is no point, and you can't even call it a reform in the long run. So then this is the key concern for India, that the creation of incentives and institutions for market economy. So we need to create incentives and institutions that can strengthen the market economy, specifically in this field if we talk about the agriculture. So it should be made both for buyers as well as the sellers. Now, buyers are all the procurement companies, maybe who are buying potatoes for the Lays or chips or something like that, or it can be other granaries that further sell it out through their shopping malls and other that the vendors and other stuff, and also for the sellers that are the farmers in the long run. That a two-way process takes place and both grow, helping each other. With this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. stealth frigate Himgiri. So Himgiri, the first of the three stealth frigates, which was built by the Garden Research shipbuilders and engineers in Kolkata. So it was launched yesterday. So as you can see, this is the entire thing. So it was launched under Project 17A. So this also you should remember that what is Project 17A. You might get some corresponding options in your exam. So basically, this program, it's a total of 7 ships, four of Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited and three from the GRSE, this one, are being built with enhanced stealth features, uh, advanced indigenous weapon and sensor fit, along with several other improvements. So basically, these ships help a lot in patrolling and making the maritime area or maritime zones of India very secure. And also the fifth and the last offshore patrol vessel of Saksham series built by Goa Shipyard was also launched into water. So these basically make sure that the waters, international waters and the Indian territorial area, entire, the water zone of India is secure, and it keeps it away from any kinds of goons or any kinds of pirates for that matter. So finally, if for the slides, a PDF for this discussion, you can join our Telegram group, which is LawSikho Judiciary Prep Support Group Inner Circle. So the link is there in the description box, and this is our website for other information as well. Thank you so much. We hope it was a good session for you. Thank you.